Welcome to Nourishing the Mother, an inspired conversation space between Bridget Wood and Julie Tenner on the journey of motherhood through the common thread of parenting, relationship, and sexuality as a path to consciousness.
We keep our conversations honest, our experiences real, and our philosophies exploratory. We believe that in order to raise incredible humans, we first have to raise ourselves. We know that in order to rock the family, you've got to nourish the mother. If you are here, you care about paving a path of conscious and intentional motherhood, connected with yourself and your gifts, and also illuminating your children in theirs so we may raise more whole humans who can impact this world in a more humane way.
If you desire to integrate your learnings practically and supportively, head on over to bridgetwood.life or julietenner.love to go deeper. And for all live-streamed pre-release podcasts and all our free content, head over to our free Facebook group, Nourishing the Mother with Bridget Wood and Julie Tenner. We are Julie Tenner and Bridget Wood, and we are so grateful you're here.
Hello and welcome to Nourishing the Mother. I'm Bridget Wood.
And I'm Julie Tenner. And today's podcast is, I want change in our relationship, but I'm worried I'll upset him. So I'm just going to read to you anonymously an email that I received today. I think I received it last week, but I read it and really responded and sat with it over and over and over today as I contemplated the echoes of how many times I've heard these words. And especially after last night, I facilitated my first women's circle since last year, before lockdown. And so the same themes were so present in this woman's email. So I've been really sitting with it today. And so what I'm going to do is just read a snippet of it. And then hopefully we'll get to address and just riff like we normally do all of the pieces and parts that we see of ourselves and our own experiences and our own, ways of finding spaciousness through really challenging moments and conversations and evolving our relationships. Let's do all of that today. Here we go. So this is in response to if you saw my Tantric Trust, it was a mini course that I had on offer for free for the last 2 weeks. You can't get it for free anymore, but if you do want to do it, it is $88 and you can find it. But in response to that, this beautiful woman's had some great epiphanies. And then she writes this: I so deeply want my husband to hear the lessons too, but he definitely has a wounded mask and would relate to being a self-centered lover. I use those words relatively frequently in one of the modules of Tantric Trust. That's why she's used those words. He is highly sensitive, and I worry he will be upset and feel attacked. Is it selfish to ask him to watch because it's what I feel like I need him to hear, what I need to change in our relationship? Or do I risk upsetting him for the health of our relationship? And then, goes on from there. So
That's such great. So, those two questions are such great questions because time and again, in various ways, I also come up against them with my clients. And being that woman and having that, fear and that activation in your nervous system is very different to being the witnesser of that woman and saying, well, of course you ask for what you need and, and risk it for the health of your relationship. However, it's easy to say that when you're not the person living with, all of the stories and all of the, the fears and the anxieties that threaten to engulf you when you sit with that in your body.
I'm so glad you said that, because that's also where I sit in this conversation, is with the deepest level of compassion, because it is, in inverted commas, so easy as a collective of feminist women in a feminine rising mindset to say, well, of course you get what you want.
Yeah.
Of course you should speak up. Of course, I mean, we're not pandering to the ridiculous man. We're here to be empowered and get what we want, So all variations of that statement. So I really love that you said that, because I can feel into that part of me that gets angry at a collapsed masculine. And especially that seems further impounded when it's embodied in a man. I seem to roll with it well when it's embodied in a woman. But a collapsed masculine in a man, there's something that I find really triggering in my own nervous system about that. Not all of the time, not with clients, but if we're just moving around in a normal day, I can recognize that's tricky, because there is that part of me that's like, oh, come the fuck on. Like, just man up.
Yeah.
Sort your shit out, receive the feedback, and do better. Love someone else more than yourself in this moment. So there is that, and there is truth in all of that. And there's the nuanced grey area in what is it like to walk this path of fire when it feels like I've still got to function as a mother, as a woman in the world, as a professional, whatever it is. And when our relationship is in turmoil, all of those things feel like they're kind of thrown up in the air, and we have no stability, and we're running so much additional energy just trying to like get through the day and try and stay focused on the thing that our body is doing in this moment, that it's like a constant battle, right?
Yeah.
It's a lot of draining, exhausting energy that goes into that churning of when I've thrown something up and there's no certainty and there's no resolution, and I'm not sure how we fit here. I think it would also be remiss of us not to say in these moments I don't think we could give it any level of deep enough conversation in one podcast, but there is obviously the conversation of domestic violence and abuse, which does also play into this conversation. So as we move forwards, please know that we're not talking about situations and setups of violence and abuse. That is never okay. And you always have a right to be safe, and your safety should always be priority number one. So whatever you need to be safe should be in your environment, everybody's forefront of their mind. Everybody is working towards keeping everybody safe. I don't have a right to make anyone else feel unsafe, and you don't have a right to make me feel unsafe. And no different to my children, where I have the physicality and the power to be more powerful than them and to take out and exert my power and control over them for harm and abuse. If they sit there and say to me, I'm scared, I'm terrified, your anger is scaring me right now, mummy, it's my responsibility to meet that and create a safer environment. It's not mine to go, and abuse continues further. Same thing in relationship. So we should all be loving each other enough, and I would hope that you are in a relationship where your lover loves you enough to want you to feel safe with them and in their presence and in your life, and that you're both navigating towards that. And if you're not, I'm not sure that's a great place for you to be.
And also I will say to that there will be some women who perhaps do your tantric trust course or engage in some of your work and then have their own awakenings where they reveal to themselves that perhaps they're in really unhealthy dynamics and that perhaps they have been complicit in allowing, emotionally abusive behavior perhaps. And that can be a really kind of earth-shattering recognition for a woman to see that and know that she can't go back from the new awareness of that, but then also recognizes that because of in relationship we train each other, right? We train each other for how we want to be related to, and this new ground of claiming back self-respect and advocating for our own needs can register in a, weak masculine potentially as threatening to their nervous system, which is not primed for your assertion and power. And so this may also be new terrain that women are having to walk, where their claiming of their power is threatening to someone who has assumed their weakness.
Yeah.
And so we're not going deep on that, but I just wanted to give voice to that too, as a dynamic, as a woman becomes more empowered.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. So let's assume that you are not in an abusive relationship. For any of us, let's assume we're not in an abusive relationship. What we mean by that is we are in a relationship where you have two humans who seek to love the other person as well as they are able in any given moment. That doesn't mean perfectly. That means doing the best I can do on the given day. And that changes constantly. But showing up to love you and to love you in service of something that feels greater or bigger or deeper or more meaningful and purposeful than just what feels best for me right now. So we have to have this idea of something that pulls us forward. So where do we want to end up? You want to end up as the old couple rocking on your porch, watching the sunset and, essentially growing old together. That's beautiful, but let that vision pull you forwards. What is the type of relationship that has been established? What is the type of communication? What is the type of connection that has been established in that relationship? The type of trust? That means you're sitting there feeling connected, like you have lived this life well and there's nowhere else on earth you would rather be, right? You backtrack that. Well, in 10 years' time, it would look like that. And in 5 years' time, it would look like this. And in 1 year time, it would look like this. And therefore, in 6 months' time, here's what we need to work on. So I'm a big believer on pick the thing that's more inspiring to you and let that lead you, because sometimes when shit gets hard, we would rather unleash the beast within us because our trauma, that would feel better, right? That response that lets us feel empowered in the moment, that gets out all of the angsty feelings in our body, would feel better for us in that moment. Not better for our partner, not better service for the relationship, and they're two separate entities, but better for us in that moment. So it's the practice of emotional intelligence that says I can feel emotions, but I can bring my mind or my consciousness with me, and I can make decisions that are in integrity and alignment with who I know myself to be now as a grown-ass adult, not as the wounded person that's arrived in this moment full of baggage, and that the decisions that I make next are in alignment with where I want to end up. That's really important.
I just love that reminder, because especially as a mother, when you're so consumed by the here and now and the needs and the, children pulling you every which way and the career and like all the things, right? All the things that are in the present day and feel a lot. To have that vision that when it feels hard, I'm orienting to this. When it feels too much, I'm orienting to this. Like, it takes you out of the overwhelm of the present to find meaning and to, again, come back to, oh, yeah, and this is my practice for achieving that.
Yeah.
My practice means I don't unleash right now. My practice means I do the best possible job I can do of taking ownership right now.
Yeah.
Of what's mine.
Totally. So the part of us that's able to do that is the part of us that I would call the mask. It's the part of us that's in touch with consciousness or higher self, has a high degree of integrity and impeccability in action. So the femme is like chaos, the great destroyer, but also the great creator. There's life constantly changing, evolving, never the same, feeling emotions in the moment, presence. The mask is like, but where are we going? Where do we need to get to and be in order to get there? How about we go this way because that's going to get us there, rather than like Now, over here, baby, because this is what gets us here. So that is our mask that allows us to do that. Usually in relationship, there's going to be one person who has more of a mask vision, more of a purposeful attachment to relationship. And so they're generally going to be the ones that lead it and guide it and say, you know, what we have is great, but I'd really love to tweak it here. What we have is wonderful, but I'd love to move it here. You know, this part's really painful. I really want to go over in this direction. There's usually going to be one person who has a greater like finger pulse on the pulse of relationship, the flow of love, the flow of connection, the flow of where we're going that's in alignment with where we're at. And I think that that's a beautiful thing. I think often what I see is women judging that because it's often women that lead it.
Yeah, because I was just going to pick you up on that, because I've heard you say before, and I've read it elsewhere, that, you know, the feminine is responsible for the flow of love in the relationship, like the feminine is feeling into that, like, and the integrity of love. But so therefore, because she's the one who's attuned to it, she's often then the one who's saying, well, I want more. And so then she's also performing both.
Well, I think all that means is that you have a higher degree of sensitivity. So because you're more wired to sense and sensate the world from feeling, you're more in touch and more connected to day with how you're feeling. Versus the denser you are as a masculine being, the less you're connected to that, the less you're checking in during the day, the less you're even spending any time in that. You'd rather live in the world of, you know, where we're going, where we're headed, goal setting, achievement lists, organization, management, direction, right? Like I'm not feeling how this feels for me right now and whether this feels like the best alignment for me. Like I'm not if I'm there. So I think when we hear that, all that means is there's, as an inherently feminine, a gift which makes you more sensitive, which all that means is you're just more attuned to the sensitivity or the nuance of feeling. So that's a beautiful thing, which is a little bit different to I'm the one who has a value on relationship and it's meaningful to my purpose and it's meaningful to my life. And I crave, yes, that femme part of me craves to feel more, but I could choose to feel more in a variety of different values, right? Like it also comes back to values. So it's this beautiful nuanced mix of, yes, feminine and more sensitive, but also values. Relationship is a high value of mine because I know it serves my purpose, it serves my life, it serves where I want to head. So I really, like you and I, Bridgie, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm certainly the one that leads relationship change. Are you?
Yeah. But my husband will sometimes come up with things and like, you know, and say, I really want to go and do this. So it's mostly me, but then sometimes I really notice him speak up for what he wants, which I love. I love to see the evidence of that too.
Yeah, that's super beautiful. So I just want to say more the purpose of having this conversation is there's usually one. And that gets to be beautiful rather than like, why is it always me? Why do you never care? Why do you never pay attention? Why do you never see the struggle? Why are you so happy with just like what we've got? You know, all of that stuff is more like, well, you know, of all of the men that I speak to, what you're like, oh God, I'm not feeling this anymore. And you haven't usually communicated that. You might not have, like this listener, even really owned it. Even really got to that point where you're in your body going, I cannot have this, do this, feel this, be this anymore. Like you haven't got there yet.
Yeah, you haven't got to no return.
No, so you're just kind of placating, you're just kind of peacemaking, you're just kind of coercing yourself out of it. You're just kind of mentally running those, oh, you know, it's not so bad. It's not as bad as, I'm probably just having a bad day. Probably just hormonal. I can't bring it up. Like you're doing that dance. So you haven't really owned it. And what I see in relationship is it's that he doesn't actually know your truth. Remember, you play it cool. They think it's cool. So everything's cool as far as they know. And what I see is these beautiful men going, yeah, but, you know, I'm super happy. Like she's great. This is great. Life's great. I'm just doing my thing. Off we go. Right off into the sunset. And that can feel jarring for some women because if your feminine is not acknowledged, you will read that as you don't see me, you don't feel me, you don't know who I am, you don't even seem to care. you know.
How much, but I mean, like, can we just pause there? Because how much have we both, like I assume you too, have felt that at various times in your relationship, especially when you're with someone for so long? Like, yes, to the ache of that as well. It just kind of feels so like your heart gets ripped open because it's like, but what do you mean? Like, are you even hearing me? Are you even seeing what I value? Are you even seeing that what I want for us is important?
Yeah.
Like, I've so been there.
Yeah, totes. And just that whole thing of like, I'm so dissatisfied. How is it even possible that you're so satisfied? Like, how is that possible?
Yeah.
But just like, you know, I mean, the law of conservation, right, Bridge? I mean, all parts are accounted for. So the degree to which I'm ambitious is the degree to which my partner is not.
Yeah.
You know, and so we could look at the ambitiousness within relationship. I'm always striving for excellence. I'm striving for the most hypercolor lived experience because I have this innate knowing of how precious this life is. So I'm not here to play it pale. So unless it's like, oh God, I just want to bite into this moment, I'm not interested.
Yeah.
But that's unusual. Most people are like, well, you know, I mean, it's pretty good. We're making ends meet. We're raising a family. We got each other. I mean, we just work and then we retire, and
it's so
that's
true.
great, isn't it?
It's so true.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's a different mindset. And you might even find this if you're in the entrepreneurial field like Bridget and I are, and yet both our husbands are employees and have an employee mindset. We come up against this here, there too.
Oh my God. And I hear it, like, I mean, like I totally, and you would just bang your head against the wall sometimes too. Like when I hear like, beautiful man he is, but I'll hear my husband's more like, you know,
sensible,
simplistic, like, I don't know, like dreams maybe, or just trajectory. Whereas I'm just like, really? Is that all? Like, is that it? You know?
Yeah, right.
Such a different lens, I suppose, of potential.
Right? Yeah, exactly. And I just really love that the lens of which both you and I look at the world and the people that we choose to love and invest ourselves in. And what I am constantly working women towards facilitating in Queen School is deep appreciation rather than judgment.
Yeah. And like that, I mean, that's the biggest thing though, isn't it? Because, and maybe the law of conservation is probably one of the most powerful law in which to bring the beauty of this home in, because otherwise you're just going to spend all your time trying to make them like you instead of looking at the perfection of how you get to be the way you are because of the way they are. Like, it's not like to try to, you don't need two of the same thing. You don't have a two-sided magnet. Like, there has to be opposites, pairs of opposites.
Yeah, there has to be difference.
And so that's actually by design.
Yeah.
But we can forget that with our like egoic attempts to make the world like us or make them because they don't want things that we want.
It seems like it would be less painful. The truth is it isn't. But it seems like it would be when we're in a bit of pain. So where do we want to go here?
I did have a list of things that I sent you. What else was on the list?
Yeah, well, we talked about you going first, which makes me think about this beautiful woman who has written this email and has said, is it selfish to ask him to watch because it feels like what I need him to hear? I can so remember feeling that part that was like, you're not listening to me, or I don't really have the balls to be blunt enough with you, or I'm too scared if I'm too blunt. So instead I just kind of play it polite, but so wanting him to be scolded by someone else so that maybe he'd feel a burn big enough that he'd wake up. Do you remember that?
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Yeah, God. And like, I mean, even like sometimes I'll bring like I'll bring my like to my husband about something, and he'll do this thing where he jumps back like I've scared him, like I've yelled at him, and I'm like, really? I didn't even yell, like I hardly brought you anything. So I can also see like the dance of that, you know, in our relationship, and like him like meeting my energy. It's funny. It's an interesting one though, because I think every new level also you have to kind of work with like, oh, I can feel the sensations that are there from the previous times where I've brought this. And you know,
it's true, right? Because we don't fear something that hasn't previously happened to us.
Yeah, exactly. So we're fearing it again because it's something either we've witnessed it in somebody else or we've experienced it, where we don't want to go back there because of how it felt. We're trying to avoid the feeling. But if it's just a feeling, it's not going to engulf us either.
So I can totally identify with this listener who's like, God, I need you to like wake up. It feels like it's like, I need you to hear. I need you to see. I need someone else to tell you, because that feels like it would be a better bridge for us, so that it's not you against me. It's this person or this mediator that plays that role. So I totally get it. And yet, the biggest changes that have paved the way to have the beautiful relationship that I have now have not been because Nick sat in front of someone or watched something that he wasn't really interested in or read a book that he didn't really care about. I don't know that he's done too many of those things at all. But what happened was I stopped focusing on him and how much I needed him to be different and him to change in order for me to have the things that I want. And I started realizing how much I was giving away my agency and power. And that truly, it was me doing that to myself.
So let's say this listener or this, this person who's watched Tantric Trust wants her husband to be able to gain this wisdom. How does she do that without sitting him in front of you?
Yeah. Well, here's what I think about this. And Bridgie, you feel free to chime in, because you and I are saying all of the time, when you change, the world around you changes in response, because we're in an interconnected web. And it seems like ridiculous spiritual woo-woo magic, like, whatever. And yet time and time again, I know it to be truth. When you change, when you stop sending all of your energy and lens onto him and you start going, okay, what do I need? Like, remember, I mean, I say this all of the time, but I also recently did a post on Instagram that was about a story of my day, and I reiterated this here, and I think it spoke to a lot of people, so I'm going to say it again, which is under anger, which is what this is, right? You might think that it's like, oh, I really want these things and he's not, but actually what it is it's turned into frustration. Right? Like you're starting to, which is purposeful because it's there trying to galvanize you, because don't forget, anger is the energy of movement, of change, of facilitation. Like sometimes you have to be fucked off enough in order to, do the shit that otherwise you wouldn't do. So when you start to feel, your desire's been missed, and it starts to turn into the hurt of missing that thing and not having it and seeing it around you and missing it again and again, and then seeing what you think is the opposite with your partner, and then you start to get pissed off. And you start to build resentment and frustration. And then one day that turns into the anger that galvanizes change. Now, unconsciously, that can end up on some pretty rocky territory.
Yeah.
But consciously, if we look at what's going on there, one, anger is beautiful, trying to give you the energy that you need to make the changes that you are seeking. And two, under the anger is the hurt. You don't feel me. You're not connected to me and my experience. I don't feel like you're interested in me, that you're not paying attention to me. And that is an aching feminine heart that is hurting because they seem invisible, and there's a part of all of us that longs to be known and touched and felt and paid attention to, and just be the apple of someone's eye, like the focus, the sensitivity, the attunement. Like there's a part in all of us that craves that. So when we don't have it, it hurts. But if we shared the pain and we stopped minimizing the impact that it has on us and or our children, we would have a very different outcome. This podcast is brought to you by what we have going on in the world right now that you can dive deeper, dip a toe into, or explore a little more. So over at julietenner.love, we have all things Lovers School happening. So Lovers School begins on April 18. It's a beautiful container just for the couples, so you can have a space to explore yourselves, your connection, your sexuality, your relationship, your communication, that you have content you can watch at your own pace. You have me available to you for 6 whole weeks, and you have 2 workshops that you can join in as much or as little as you like. There's no pressure. This is just a space for you to dedicate to you and your relationship. And Bridgie.
Yes, and over at bridgetwood.life, you can check out Flow, Mind, Body, Mothering, which is all things managing, uncovering, and expanding your energy in your parenting. It's all about seeing dynamics in your relationship with your child and your broader family. It's about tuning into who your child is and becoming, and about really equipping yourself as a mother with more tools to help you feel lush and expanded in your mothering journey.
So under anger is hurt. Get in touch with what it is that you're hurting about. You can do the work to go backwards and be like, where has this come from me? Where have I not felt seen before? Where have I not felt heard before? What does this part of me that doesn't feel heard or felt or paid attention to or noticed, what is it that she needs? And how can I give that to myself? Because if you keep waiting for someone outside of you to give it to you, it will never come. So under the hurt, be with the hurt. And then under the hurt is your original desire. So you might be like, oh, God, it pains me when I don't feel like you are paying attention to me, like you don't see me. What I really long to be is just endlessly fascinating to you. Just I desire to, just lay down or just be as I am without any movement or pretense or performance, like just to be. And that is endlessly fascinating for you. To be adored, to be felt, like to be really felt, to be met and touched and sexed in ways that are for me and about me. Right?
Yeah.
So if you brought that to your partner, I long to have this type of experience with you. God, all I want is to feel how intensely focused you are on your fingertips touching my skin. And you're just going moment by moment by moment. And the second it's not that, the second it flicks into, I'm now focused on my penis, I'm now focused on, whinging or whining, or I need to get something. What is this bringing up for me? Come back to my hurt. So just always returning to, you get to have your fullness met in any moment. It just might, in the training while he works that out, might not always come from him. It might come from you. It's a bit of a nuanced mix. So I think that there's a way to share parts of those videos that you want him to hear. And I think that there's a spectrum on which you can do that. And my advice to you would be to find one that feels best for you. Or you could play with all of them, right? So you could come with, a time when he's not focused and he's not dog tired, and maybe you've already asked him to create a pocket of time where you can have a conversation, or you're sitting down, you're having coffee together, or you bring a wine and you're going to sit together, like some time that's not you competing with whatever the thing is that he's focused on at the moment. And you share, baby, I want to feel this with you. Like you're saying, I want you. I want this with you. Like, come with me. I want to try this. I want to do that. You could say there's part of me that feels hurt because I feel like I'm starting to tune into, I want to love the sex we have. I want to want you so much more than I do. And I'm trying to find my way through that and all of the blocks and the barriers. And I want us to have the most erotic experience that we can of connectedness. But sometimes I feel like you leave or you disappear into your own cock or penis, and I'm just left here feeling empty and like a vessel. And what I crave to be is to just be the total like adoration, the total focus of your attention. And I would say to you that that is largely more normal in our culture, that we are trained into getting, right? I need to get me some of that. I'm going to hit that. I'm going to get more of that. I need more sex. You're not giving it to me. Like whatever. It's all a version in our culture that's about getting. And we rarely, and most especially men, right, where they grow up, I mean, their greatest trainer in sexual activity is pornography, where it's based solely around masculine arousal and penises. So there is no education around being a lover. There is no education on what it is to focus on anything that's outside of the cock and how it feels. And you add on to that years of tension-filled, like muscle tight, crunched up, end pumping goal to get to this like orgasm. And depending on how many times we've masturbated and how many times we've used masturbation as a form of sexual release, right? Now we've trained our bodies into having 2-minute sex or 30-second sex, as opposed to anything that looks like a feminine version of being with a woman's body and knowing how to open it and knowing how to touch it so that she opens and knowing how to shift your focus from, oh, it feels so good, into, where are you? Where am I taking you? Like, these are lover skills. So I also, yes, part of me gets angry at our patriarchal culture. Yes, that. And also I feel deeply sad for men.
Yeah, who don't have the skills or the capacity or the know-how or the training.
Yeah, or even the cultural okayness that it's okay to explore this. What is it? That they literally have not had the education on what it is to love a woman's body well.
Yeah.
So I feel really sad for them. So when it comes to relationship, all they're left with in relationship is your feedback, is your impact.
And so then what you've got is, if you've got then a woman who's been trained by the culture to fake orgasms, perform, deny her needs, just get it over and done with, focus more on him, which is
placating, peacemaking, playing nice, doing it just because you need it, giving it up, not orgasming and not, thinking that there's like that's fine, that's just the way it is, right? All of that.
Which is most of our training, like most of women's training growing up.
Yeah.
If you're looking at, like, if you've grown up with magazines and all of that kind of stuff. And so that, you put those two dynamics together of sexual development, and you have a pretty lackluster and unfulfilling sexual dynamic.
Yeah, exactly. So the purpose of highlighting that is just to build, I hope, more compassion for you, for him, for the dynamic, because it's unfortunately common in our culture versus being an outlier.
Yeah.
So back to, can you get him to watch the videos? There's some men who want to, who the need or the want for themselves to be a better lover is great enough for them to meet those edges. There's men who, when their woman says, I'm deeply unsatisfied here, this is hurting, this is not working for me, I really want to explore this together, I want to do this together, are like, okay, well, I don't want to do it for me, but I'll do it for you. Beautiful. Those people can watch the video. Then there's the men, like potentially this one, who's very sensitive, meaning that they go on the attack versus being able to receive feedback.
Mm.
And anywhere in our life, most notably in our, business or career area of life, feedback is a gift. How can you possibly get better if you don't know where you're going wrong?
Mm.
Like, you can't. So there's an art to how we deliver that feedback. And that's the feminine art of, am I meeting my own needs? So I'm not this starving human who's like getting rageful at the fact that you're not giving it to me. Do I know how to be in a place of abundance so I'm a magnetic, energetic match for that thing that I'm desiring? I want to be desired. I have to be the energy of desire. They're a match.
Mm.
But if I'm like, fuck you, fuck off, fuck the world, well, that's what I'm getting back.
That's not very receptive to what you want.
I'm not getting desire back, am I?
Mm.
So doing your own work, all of a sudden when men are seen or our partners are seen in the light of appreciation, I appreciate you so much, this connection. I see you. They desire to see you and be connected and come closer to you. I want you. They desire to meet you in deeper ways. So when you change, the world around you changes. So you don't have to have a partner who is conscious, awakened, willing or wanting in order for you to do the things that you need to do to make your life better. You don't.
Mm.
You go on your path and you see where you end up. And at some point, most of the time, what happens is women go, wow, I didn't know that's who he was. I didn't know that. I mean, you and I, Bridget, would both say we didn't think our men could do what they do now, right?
Oh my God, so much. Yeah.
So the truth isn't that they were not those things.
No, it's just that we weren't the embodiment of the woman to call in those things and see that in them.
Right.
Yeah.
So when you change you, the world around you changes, and your partner is included in that and your dynamic is included in that.
Mm.
So if it feels like I'm not feeling like I have the skills, the capacity, the communication, or the know-how to be able to bring this to him in a way that would keep us connected, then don't do it.
Mm.
Just do it for you. Do the things that you need. Come back to starting to clue him in rather than keeping him clueless.
Mm.
Start there and you will change mountains.
Yes.
Do I risk upsetting him for the health of our relationship? Sometimes.
Mm.
He needs to be able to feel the impact that his choices and actions have on you.
Mm. Yeah, because otherwise, actually, you're not loving him well if you don't clue him into that. Right? It's a little bit like with our children. Like, if we don't highlight the areas where it's impacting us or others, like their choices, then we're letting them down in a way because we're not helping them meet the world in a more, expanded or reflective way.
Totally. Totally. So when I look at the things that you sent me, Bridge, you go first is literally what that is, right?
Mm.
Like, you go first. Or you think you've got a partner who's open and willing enough to meet you, then you've already had the conversation. You go, babe, I just want to watch this 2-minute snippet and I just want to have a talk about it because I want to integrate it, change it, shift it up. Like, can we just hash it out a little? But I would say to you, if he's not ready to watch a 15-minute video, just give him a minute. What is the 1 minute of the one thing that you want to change? And always focus on the one thing, because remember, you get excited about the one thing and all of a sudden you're in the space of the one thing changing. You're like, well, now there's like 25,000 others. And that will never go well. And you will scare him off and he will never want to come back. So best you train with positive reinforcement. Here's the one thing, baby. Here's what I want to work on. Here's where I want to go. You want to come with me? Like, let's give it a whirl. Let's try. Like, reinforce when it works really well. Like, appreciate the shit out of him when you see those changes through just feeling it for yourself. This feels so good. This feels so much better, and letting him see that. You will move mountains one step at a time. Don't get excited and do more than one. Is what I would say to that.
That's ultimately sustainable change rather than, like just blowing out his nervous system. And your own too. Yeah. It's like we can only also sustain incremental shifts often if we're going to be able to carry it long term, which is what we want.
Totally. 100%. Busting the stories that are in the way.
Mm.
What do you think about this?
Yeah, because don't we all have them? Don't we have a myriad of stories that mean that we don't prioritize it, that mean that we explain away our, I don't know, the patterns of mediocrity, that we just justify, right? Justify where it is based on all the other demands in our life.
Yeah.
I think ultimately where our energy goes, that's what's going to expand. So if we're not willing to put attention and energy in our relationship, then it's not going to feel rocking.
Yes. That's often a surprise to people, though, isn't it? Or certainly that's what I see in my world. I'm sure that's what you see in your world too, is the pain in your relationship is painful enough that you're starting to notice it.
Yeah.
But when push comes to shove, you will choose all of these things before you choose to invest your time, energy, attention, emotional intelligence, energy into making that shift, right? You'll choose meeting the kids' needs. So if you've got a kid screaming and you want to have a hug with your partner, which you're going to choose?
Yeah, that's a good question. Because time and again, we'll choose a child, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you being and creating the best relationship and foundations of what it is to love and be loved, there could not be a bigger gift to your child. It's bigger than living with the underlying resentment, repulsion, cycles of disconnect that they're blueprinting as love.
Yeah.
While you meet their needs emotionally in the moment while they're having a tantrum.
Which I also would argue too, if we met the relational needs in the moment, would the child's expression in the moment not be?
Yeah. As a family dynamic.
Yeah. So I'm thinking about so whatever we repress in the partner dynamic, children express. So if there's seething anger or rage in the couple, then sometimes you'll see amplified behavior in the children because they're kind of trying to wake you up to it. So this is another way where actually addressing the relationship addresses some of the parenting stuff, addresses some of the child behavioral stuff, because you're actually doing the work that the children are trying to wake you up to.
And it shifts your whole dynamic.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty cool, hey?
Really cool. Yeah.
So which are you choosing? You choose kids all of the time over your partner. Your partner would love to spend time with you, but, the kids and their needs and dinner and cleaning the house and getting the dishes done and writing the list and sending the email and making sure the uniforms are ironed tomorrow and
the never-ending list, right? You're never
going. It's just like a hierarchy of values, right? And so you just keep bumping relationship down that hierarchy of values. That's the level of disorganization, chaos, and pain that's going to exist there, because the further down it is, the more we have disorganization, chaos, and pain.
Yeah, exactly.
So you want less pain, you got to bring relationship up,
and manage your own nervous system at what you're going to need to maybe let go of, the control of, to be able to put the attention here, right? Because so much of our satisfaction can come from getting the house done or getting the kids sorted, but but sometimes there's a cost to that, which is over here in the relationship.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it's satisfaction and validation. And other times,
it's hiding.
It's a way to stay busy and hide.
Yeah, I definitely see that. And I mean, I have done that in the past. Definitely, early, when my children were littler, definitely hid from, use attachment parenting as a way to hide from my anxiety of where I knew my relationship needed to grow to.
Yeah.
So if the kids need me, my kids need me, then, this is just how it is now. This is just what it is. And then I don't have to be with my own, insecurities or fears that I would have to meet if I wasn't consumed by the baby that needs me.
Totally. So I do think that it is beautiful to create pockets and spaces where you can be with your relationship, because unless you create the time consciously to do that, and you say, okay, I'm going to sign up for this course, we're going to do that workshop, we're going to attend this counseling session, we're going to go on a date at this time, it doesn't matter what it is. But while it's under-empowered and in pain, unless you create structures that hold you to accountability, then make sure that you show up so that it's almost like a way of forcing yourself to bring it higher up. You create the time because time never happens upon you. Spontaneity is such a bullshit concept because spontaneity exists from the very foundations of structure and focused attention. So how about we do that shit and spontaneity will erupt from that place. But trying to do it the other way around keeps it in chaos. So whatever it is, the course, the workshop, the time together, the babysitter, it doesn't matter. But create a structure outside of you, because right now you have the dynamic you have based on where you've gotten yourself. You're doing the best you can, babe. I don't doubt it. But at some point we have to realize we also don't have all of the answers and don't have to. And we can never see our own stuff for the wood for the trees.
Yeah.
So you might be the person who spouts all of the advice to all of your friends, and yet you can't apply it to yourself. I don't think that that's dysfunctional. But all that means is the recognition of I don't have to have all of the answers. It's not all on me. I've gotten myself where I can. I need help. I need guidance. I need someone who can pull me forwards and through this. I need someone who can help us tend to this garden of our relationship. And I think that is the best thing that you can do together. And it doesn't matter what form it is, but it's just really consciously saying we will invest at these times.
Yeah. Which is really like beautiful to then go, okay, I'm going to do that. I'm going to commit to this next level of growth. And even though that's likely to be like terrifying too, because like, fuck, where is it going to take me? What kind of new ground is it going to break for us? And what also has to break down for us to initiate that?
Yeah. And I also think it doesn't always have to be so painful.
No,
consciousness can also be light. And it can also be exploratory and full of compassion and gentle and slow. Like it can also be all of those things. It doesn't always have to look like the broken leg and the rip the Band-Aid off. Like sometimes, but it doesn't always have to. And I would say at this point in our lives, with 2022 being what I perceive and see around me, such a year of people's nervous systems feeling overwhelmed and overloaded, and so much bone deep fatigue. It's probably not the year for the rip the Band-Aid off. It's probably the year for how do we add more nourishment and support to ourselves to do.
It's so true, isn't it? Because this speaks again to sustainable change as well. Because if it is just a hard slog, oh gosh, this next childhood wound or this next thing that feels hard, our capacity to continue and make that change stick is going to be less if we're not doing it from a nourished place.
Right. So I don't mind what form that gentleness takes, but I do know with an absolute truth that you do get to live the love and the life that you envision and fantasize about in your head. It just won't look like a fantasy to get there. It'll look like that beautiful balance of support and challenge where we grow and evolve the most, and that we continue to build and grow our own capacity to be with ourselves as we meet those levels, knowing that we can always have support for that. We can always be guided in that. We can always be held in that. And we never have to do it alone.
It sounds so beautiful.
Well, it's true though, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Because
we get so nuclear.
Yeah, because we train ourselves to be that way. We train ourselves to be resilient and like, oh, just, push on. And I love the reminder of that. To heal in community and to expand and find that joy and find that nourishment and find all of those beautiful things.
Totally. Yeah. So if you're ready to do something like that, I do have Lovers School that opened today. The doors are only open for 2 weeks. So we begin on the 18th of April. It is a couples-based experience. There is an evergreen course content that's full of ways to explore deepening your intimacy, your relationship, your connection, communication, and most definitely has a sexuality, sex-based focus. But the content is only one part of it. The rest of it is we spend 6 weeks together in a course container full of couples who are exploring their own ways. We have 2 workshops, and those workshops are specifically, and we'll be designing them and running them. So it's just like a couples, it's just focused on you. You don't have to have a camera on. You can watch a replay. You can join in and not participate as much as you want. There's no pressure. I'm just saying, here's some beautiful resources. Go at your own pace. Open up whatever you want to open up. Here's 2 beautiful workshops. Come and do it with your partner. Don't do it. Do pieces of it. Doesn't matter. It's here. Take what you need, leave what you don't, but let yourself have the space, the container, and the holding to keep moving forwards. And that's what I want Lovers School to be. So you can find out more at julietenner.love. And you, Bridgie, what have you got going on in the world?
Yes, so all things flow, mind, body, parenting. So this is my, taster course for working with me. So it's a really great way for you to put into practice all of the parenting stuff that I talk about, but really more broadly than that, it's you and how you relate to your identity as a mother, your own dynamic with your child, and how to just bring more light and joy and presence to your motherhood journey. So you can find out more about that at bridgetwood.life. Remember to nourish the woman to rock the family.
And we'll see you next week when we continue to peel back the layers on your mothering journey.
Thank you so much for listening. We literally couldn't do this without you. Please share this podcast with anyone you think it would be medicine for.
If you desire to integrate your learnings practically and supportively into your life, then head on over to bridgetwood.life or julietenner.love to go deeper.
And if you feel like giving back a little to this free content, please rate us on iTunes or Facebook, all of which helps the podcast reach more mamas who need this type of tonic for the soul.
This has been a production of TheWellnessCouch.com. Check us out on Facebook and join in the conversation on Facebook.com/TheWellnessCouch. Subscribe to each show on iTunes and check us out on Twitter. The Wellness Couch, streaming wellness into your lives.
Whilst the Wellness Couch presenter endeavor to provide accurate and helpful information to their listeners, these podcasts cannot take into account individual circumstances and are not intended to be a substitute for health and medical advice from a qualified health professional. You should always seek the advice of a qualified health professional before acting on any of the information provided by any of the Wellness Couch podcasts.